Hey, my name is Dan and this is my shop. This is where I build, maintain, and sometimes repair my model airplane fleet. Today we're going to be working on the Ryan's Rebel wing. Still, I wish we could just power on through and get this wing done, but there's lots of little details that I think that I needed to share with you along the way. I could just gloss over it, but there's some things that I think you need to know about. One of them is the aileron assembly and how we put the servo into the wing and so forth. And that's pretty much what I'm going to do today. I've already taken care of one of them. I'm going to be doing the other one so that you can watch how I did it. By the way, if you're new here and you're really into model airplanes or building or flying model airplanes or want to learn more about how to maybe build your own, this is the channel to be on. So please, please, please subscribe down below and hit that bell. We'd love to have you here. We don't have an extensive interview process for this. I think I did that okay up to that point. And with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started today. That rhymed. Did you hear that, kitty? That rhymed. She's down here. All right, doing a quick look over the bench. As we can see, there's a big honking mess going on in it. Hey, those are my truck keys. I've been looking for those for a week now. Huh. Well, this kind of shows you sometimes this bench becomes kind of a multi-purpose thing, like that stuff there. I got the tire sealer. I had to fix a snowblower tire yesterday. Yeah, so this bench gets used for many different projects sometimes all at the same time. But today, I want to talk about this right here. This is the aileron housing all finished up on the bottom of the wing. This whole panel has been put in place of the bay that where the aileron is held. And I kind of want to show you how I built it. It's got the hold down blocks and everything in place. And we'll go ahead and get started on that right now. So the first step we're going to do is we need to build the tube of paper that is going to be right in the back here. You can see this tube of paper here runs from the center section out to the servo bay. And the purpose of this tube is to simply hold the wiring that is going to pass from there to here. And it makes it easier when you got this tube in here. If you ever need to change that servo out, the tube, just gives it a route. So otherwise you'd be trying to fish it between these open holes in here and it would be very difficult. Doesn't work too well. So we're going to make a tube. This is something that's very simple. We're just going to use newsprint, actually. This is newsprint that was never printed on. In here. All right, so here's what we start off with. We need a drumstick, and we need a sheet of newsprint that is long enough to cover that span, which I've got right here. So the trick to this is we want to wrap it around this drumstick as tight as we possibly can. And it can be tricky. You can use just about any other kind of paper you want. I was going to try to do it with parchment paper, but it needs to be able to be glued to the ribs. And that parchment paper that they use for cooking, I swear they could put that stuff on the bottom of the space shuttle because it can stand all kinds of heat and nothing sticks to it either. So here's what we're doing. We're going to try to get this thing as super tight as possible. And that's pretty tight. It's not super tight, but it's pretty tight. And then once we get there, I should have done this because I need two hands to do this, and I don't have two hands to do this. All right. So you take this painter's tape and use that on the end. Like that. In fact, I like to go all the way out to the end on this one if you can, because it'll help feed it through those holes we got to go through. But its main job for this task is just to keep the roll from spinning out and unrolling. Okay, so that's the assembly ready to be put into the end of the wing. So here's the aileron bay right here, and the paper has to make it all the way to the center section right here. All right, so what we're going to do is go ahead and feed this into the end of the wing like so. I'm going to pass it through each one of these holes. Now having that drumstick in there, you can use a dowel if you don't have a drumstick. But the purpose of that is it kind of helps keep the whole thing. This paper is really flimsy, and so it's easier to have a solid object down in there while we're doing this. Let's see what we've got to there. And we'll just keep continuing on down. And run it. Now you can see I've got the paper is now into the opening. That's where see this, you can see right here where I drew this circle. That's where I'm planning on bringing the servo extension out, and it'll plug into the receiver from here. So that's going to be cut out eventually. I'm going to put another one right here, and that's where the lead is going to come out from this one. And that is pretty much it. Now, once we got it this far, we'll go ahead. I always use this painter, this blue tape, because this is low tack and it will not wreck the paper. Because all I want to do at this point is just get that tape off of there, like so. And now, we get the other one off of the other end here. Okay, there we go. The tube is now in place. And once you get that tape off, it just expands like into all this stuff here. So now I can take a little bit of the white glue and seal this down, and that tube will now be stuck to the ribs and provide the passage we need for that wiring. So let's go ahead and do that. And then eventually what I'm going to do is I'll neaten this up. This is way longer than it needs to be, so I'll go ahead and cut this off right here. But for now, let's just get the glue on them. Come on, glue, get down there. And I'll go ahead and do it on a few of these different ribs. This does not have to be pretty. All it has to do is dry in place and hold this paper on. I'll go ahead and get the one right around the main bay. Okay, and that's about it. That'll work for now. I've got to let this dry, and then we can move on to the next step, which is going to be to start shaping up the pieces that are going to go and hold the aileron servo into position here. So you probably remember this piece from the last time on my scroll saw demonstration. I showed you how I cut this out, and now we're ready to go ahead and start building onto it. This is the plate that's going to be, this is the light ply plate that is going to ride underneath the balsa cover that's going to go over that entire bay over there. I'm just pointing. I don't know if I'm even on the camera. Okay, so anyways, what I wanted to do here is do a test fit. This is going to be the servo that's going to be used in this particular thing. So we'll go ahead and test fit this guy here. I'll make sure that it fits in there. And the front is this way. Remember, I put that X on there to remind myself that that was going to be the front end. And see, the servo does fit inside the hole nicely. That's good. So the next step is we're going to take and drill the holes. I want to go ahead and drill the holes into the wood so I know exactly where those screws are going to lay before I do the next steps. So we'll go ahead and get those lined up. The important thing is those screws need to be going through wood. If they're not going through wood, it's not going to be good. Hey, that rhymes. If it's not going through wood, then it's not going to be good. A little bit of airplane poetry. Okay, there's one. I think this drill bit is kind of dull. Make sure I don't stick my fingers in. Okay, that's that. So now, I'm going to pull this out. Let me see, we've got screw holes all the way around. And we'll go ahead and get working on the next step, which is going to be to build up the rest of the parts of this tray. Alright, so the next step here, we're going to be working on getting the... What I want to do is I want to put... You see, we got the holes here, and there they are on the underside. We're going to put some little blocks of plywood here. This is going to give the set screws for the servos a little more meat to hang on to. It's going to give them something else. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue these on. They're going to be basically glued over those holes, so I know that the screws are going into that wood. And let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to use my good old white wood glue for this operation as well. Got to open it first, though, you know. Yeah. Come on, get down in there. God, glue takes forever. Okay, so we got some there. Smear some up there. And I'm going to need a couple of good clamps to hold this together. And we'll go ahead and... I've got glue oozing out all over the place. This is going to be awesome. Okay, there's one. You'll have to excuse me if I've got this zoomed up really close so that you can see detail, and I'm afraid sometimes that while I'm just concentrating on not screwing up the piece, I'm totally whipping it out of the frame and you can't see what's going on. But and I need a rag, so we'll go ahead and wipe up as much of this excess glue as we can. Okay, so those are the hold down. Those are going to be the blocks for the screws to go into. Got to make sure that they're lined up right with the edge. I don't want them coming in over that edge because then I'll have to carve that off. But that's that. That's the pieces for the hold down blocks. Now the next thing we need to do is on the edges, I like to reinforce this whole piece is going to sit. Let me go ahead and back this out and I'll show you. I've got this piece here fits right into this bay end to end perfectly. So what I want to do is it's going to sit right inside here, and then this plywood piece is going to be flush mounted with the tops of the rib the way it is right now. And then I'm going to take the balsa sheet and put it right over the top, and it'll actually glue to the top of this piece as well. So what we're going to do next is I want to add a little bit more reinforcement to the sides. So this is 3/8 triangle stock. See that? It is a triangle. 3/8 triangle stock, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece right here and then another piece down here, and that's going to help give it some extra width and bite on the sides of this thing here, so of the sides of the bay, to hold it more sturdy in there from the high torque of the servo, and it'll help secure it even further. So that's going to be my next step. I'll go ahead and cut those things into shape, and I'll come back and we'll glue those on, and then we'll just let it sit for a while because I got to wander off to work this morning. But anyways, the part will be ready when we get home, and then I can go ahead and get ready to install it. Rolling tape. And action. All right, several hours have gone by at this point, and we could see that the glue has pretty much dried up in here. See that yellowing? That's all dried out. So this is held in place firmly at this point with all these glue joints. So that's not going anywhere. And that's all it takes is just a slight seam of this glue to hold it into the wood. This is not a part that's going to be, you know, stuck with a bunch of, it's not going to be feeling a bunch of stress or anything. If that thing were to break loose inside the wing, it's not going to crash the airplane. So not a super high priority part. Then we go to this. This is the part that we had clamped and everything, and it's all cured now. All the glue is cured in it. It's looking pretty good, quite actually. Next step is we'll go ahead and set these. I'm going to run the drill back through all these holes so they pass through the hold down block on the other side. And then right after that, we're going to go ahead and mount it into the position on the wing. That'll be the next steps here. So let's get to work. And the next step is we're going to start sizing in where this is going to go. I put a couple of indexing marks here because I wanted this to match up exactly with the other side as far as how close that servo is to the trailing edge. So what we're going to do is we're going to put this tray into place. And with this 3/4 or 3/8 inch triangle stock on there, it gives it more surface to mount to. Just going to be using good old wood glue for this one as well. And that's what it's going to do. We'll put this flush to the top of these ribs like that. And let that dry. I'll let the glue cure. And then the next thing we're going to do, once that is all complete, is I'm going to take this sheeting and we'll lay this down over the top of it. This will of course be cut so that, you know, it fits the bay correctly instead of this big honking panel here. So the first thing I want to do is I kind of want to take this part here and just rough up the edges, because I use that glue, the CA, the medium thick, and what it will do is sometimes it'll leave kind of a shiny surface to bond here. I don't want that. I want it to be something that's going to soak into the pores of the wood a little bit. So I'll get that done. Just kind of, it just needs to be roughed up. It doesn't need to be resized or anything. Now that they're to size, we'll go ahead and start working on putting them in there. We'll get out my good buddy, Mr. Tight Bond. Tight Bond 2. They have Tight Bond 1, 2, and 3. I don't know what the difference is between each one of them. They all seem to say interior, exterior on them. I don't know. Maybe the 3 is, you know, got some kind of super grip or something for all I know. It could be really awesome secret sauce. I always seem to have trouble to remember to open the stupid thing. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just kind of give that a thin smattering of glue, a quick bead. And this is such a nice tight fit, you actually have to pull the rib out just a little bit. And on the last one I had to use clamps to hold it in place, but I think I nailed this one so close. It's got just plenty of pressure firmly built into it. We're not going to need to use the clamps. Okay, and check to see that that's a nice flush seal. And perfect. We'll go ahead and leave that in position for now. And I'm going to wander off to work again, and then when I get home we'll put down the top layer, and that will probably be it, other than, well, we'll get it to the point where I can go ahead and put the screws in it and drop the servo into the actual wing itself. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, this is going to be awesome. All right, so that's it for right now. We'll be back in a bit. All right, this is, oops, I don't even have the microphone on me. Put that stupid thing on there. All right, this is clip number 217. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a challenge for me. Let's try that again. This is going to be a little bit of a challenge for me because I've got the camera sitting here in front of me as I'm going to be gluing this panel on. This is the joining of those two panels that I showed you before. I went ahead and used a little bit of thin CA to join them together, and then I cut them to size. And what I try to do is I try to emulate, see these cap strips hang over the edges of the rib. Tried to emulate about as close to that as I could. So this panel here is going to fit perfectly in place there. What I'm going to do at this point is I'll go ahead and run some of that wood glue down the side rails and then put a pretty good blast of it right here. And then once that's all done, I'll go ahead and pin it down and just let it sit, and then I'm going to go to work for the day. How about that? We'll come back later on this afternoon, and this will all be held in place, and we can flip the wing over. And what I like to do with this is I'll flip the wing over and I'll just use an X-Acto knife to cut the hole back through this panel here, and then we could set the servo down right on top of it. And that's what the plan is right now. So I'll go ahead and get to work on that. Let's see how this goes. Once again, I said I got this camera in my way, so if you see some of this kind of stuff going on, it's just me. Don't worry about it. Go to do this, I don't want to stick that much glue in this area here, because what's going to happen is once I've got this down here, we're going to countersink the servo into the wood a little bit so that the servo is going to come right down onto this piece of plywood, not the piece of balsa that's going to go over the top. So I like getting close to the edges here, but what's going to happen is I'm going to use the razor blade and I'm going to remove that section so that these little rubber dealies, the grommets, let me just go ahead and stick that right in that pile of glue. The grommets that are here on the servos are going to be flushed down right to that surface of there. If you put it over the top of the balsa, what I find is balsa is so soft that over time it will kind of get loose. This wood will crush down and the servo will become loose, and that could become a problem in flight. So anyway, that's what I'm up to with that. So this is ready to be put on. This panel's been sitting now for about 5 hours. I've already pulled the pins out of it here. So this is the completed finished panel. The pins are all back in their home. And the next step is we're going to go ahead and flip this over. And you can see this is the underside of the holder here. And what we've got to do at this point is clean out this hole. So I'll get to work on that right now. Servo is all mounted. Check it out. Look at that. The main thing we're looking for here, this is what I did with this. These are servos that are from another plane and it happened to have the hardware already on it. And the reason why I had these two indexed, I showed you that I had little marks on there for how low I wanted that tray to sit. The reason why is because I had it so that this new rod would work perfectly with the setup here. You want this to be right over the line where the hinge mounts into the back trailing edge here. So this needs to be perfectly right over that, and then what's going to happen is the horn will be mounted on the aileron. It will tie into here, and it will give it the ability to move forward and back, or up and down on the aileron in this case, and it will look perfect. Now it won't look perfect, it's just going to operate perfectly. So anyways, that's the reason why I wanted to make sure that this was in an exact position, and I did that just like the same procedure on the other one that I put down previously. This is going to be the last part of this wing that I want to work on. In the plan, it shows, here I'll show you really quick. If you look on the plan here, this is this end of the wingtip here, and on the end, okay, there's the last rib, which is what is right here, and then just beyond that, there's this little 1/8 inch plate that just kind of covers the whole rib. So the plate kind of rides to the outside here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. I mean, it's got to be sanded down so it's nice and nice, flat, smooth the whole way. And then I'm going to take a 1/8 inch sheet of balsa and put it on the end, and I will trace it with a Sharpie pen and run it through the scroll saw and just make a plate to put on the end. I like having a nice flat wingtip because if you ever need to store it or stand it up just to get it out of the way, it will sit nicely on a flat one. I know a lot of guys will take and they will make the triangle so it actually comes from here. They'll put it a piece that'll be right in the middle, and it will flare outward as it goes, and it makes for a, you know, it makes it like a more of a three-dimensional pointed wing. I don't so much like those because if you ever go to stand it up while you're trying to like stack it into the car or something like that, it'll fall over because it's going to be leaning against that edge the whole time. So I'm just going to put a flat edge on there, and that will be it. That'll pretty much complete the construction of the wing. The only other thing that needs to be done is I need to do some center bracing with some fiberglass way down there. Needs a little bit of fiberglass in the midsection, and that'll be done. So we should be moving on to the next piece here really quickly. Hey, thanks for stopping by today. And if you have any questions about what I did here, please put a question in the comments down below. If I see them, I will answer them. Until then, I'll see you next time.